Hello, Team Phoenix. We are online finally. So, after some technical issues, we are there. We are so happy you are here. Hopefully you can find us still. Should be there on LinkedIn. If you watch the recording, welcome everybody to this new episode of the Social Sales Engineer. Please comment during our chat. Please comment afterwards. I want to introduce melissavanderhecht with me. So she's an incredible ex-colleague and field CTO at Kong. And I'm so happy you're here. Do you want to say something about you?
Firstly, I am so happy to be here. I'm very flattered. Thank you, Philip, for the nomination. Thank you, Patrick, for having me. I think, yes. I absolutely love the fact that you've set up this stream, Patrick, because certainly when I started my career in pre-sales, honestly, I got a job at MuleSoft doing pre-sales, and I'm only admitting this to people now. I didn't know what pre-sales was until about 6 months after I started it, and I think having something like this would have been so good for my learning.
It's amazing. It's the same thing, the same revelation I had. And actually, we met in the same year, right? So we both joined MuleSoft in 2014. And yeah, I remember I saw you in London in the office. We were like, it was like, who is that? Nobody could not see you, right?
It's a double-edged sword.
How was this? So sorry.
No, I was just saying it's a double-edged sword being so different from the stereotype. I know what you mean. People can't fail but to notice someone who looks different, sounds different, younger as well when I started than everybody else.
Yeah. How did you feel? So, I mean, we were an all-male team, right? During this time, 2014, maybe we were 4 or 5. I remember Guy was there, Pablo, right? Christian maybe joined a bit later. But how was it starting out as sales engineer?
Terrifying. It was. I wouldn't change the fact that I did it. Being an SC, so for everybody here, I started at MuleSoft when I was 24 years old, and I was an SC there for just under 5 years. And that made my career. But it was like that. I can't tell you how many times I stayed up all night long working, cried myself to sleep with tears of exhaustion, horrible anxiety and stress, completely 90% of it because I was worried that I just wasn't good enough. And part of that is because I was such a junior. Part of that is because everybody else had this like aura of confidence, and I was like, whoa, I'm really different. They all know what they're doing. I'm just going to copy them. There was a guy, and I've said this to him once before. There was a guy in our team when we started who I kind of looked up to as a mentor called Jesus, and he
Jesus was on our team. Yeah. Sorry.
You can get those wristbands that say, "What would Jesus do?" For me, like in my head, I had this invisible wristband of what would Jesus do? And I would just try and copy him in every single situation where I didn't know what to do. And then over time, obviously I learned a huge amount from you, Patrick. I think you're very inspirational, SE, the innovations that you've come up with. But over time, this is a long answer to your question, but over time, as I found my feet and as my confidence grew, and as I also got more comfortable with my own identity, I then stopped trying to work out what would other people do, and I started trying, well, what would I do?
Yeah, and I remember Jesus too. He had the same appearance as you, right? Tattoos, always calm, right? Like a block of ice, I would say. And then he did his cigarettes right down to the backyard, and it was amazing times. And I learned a lot from him too. So as I said, I was new too, and thanks for your compliments, by the way. So pre-sales is a lot of fun, and I think we shaped our roles a lot, I would say, right? And you did a big part of that. So So what were your challenges maybe as the only woman in the team?
So it's hard, I guess, to separate challenges based on what factor they were, because I was several years younger than most other people. I had moved to London the day before I started my job at MuleSoft. It was my first time at a startup. I didn't really know what APIs or integration was. So I was kind of at the beginning of the learning curve of pretty much everything, as well as being different from the stereotype. But there's kind of one theme, I think, that I'll use to answer this question that is I think about on a very regular basis. And that is, when approaching a problem or any personal interaction or presenting or whatever it might be, and I'm massively generalizing here, and I don't mean to cause offense to anybody listening, but there tend to be different natural traits that men and women hold. And they're all great. Some of them aren't great, but that's not to say that any that men hold are better than any that women hold are better. But what it does mean is that there are certain traits that I have that were less strong in other members of the team. And there were other traits that people in the team had, like the ability to go very technical very quickly, the ability to challenge and have that confidence and that assertiveness. That's not something that comes so naturally to me in the same way. But for me, I am a good listener. I'm a good empathizer, made up a word, empath. I'm a good relator. So for probably my first couple of years in my career, everybody that I was learning from was male with these fairly male traits. And I'd see, okay, this is what good looks like. So every day I'd wake up and there'd be my natural inclination to approach a problem in a certain way. And I'd say, well, actually, no, this is what Patrick does. This is what Jesus does. This is what Pablo does. And I'd try and do things exactly like you guys, because you guys were all doing incredibly well, which meant I was working harder than I had to make myself good at things that weren't quite so natural to me as they were to you. But then I had this light bulb moment, and it came after working pretty much to the point of burnout, frankly, like putting that much pressure on myself. I had this, not one single light bulb moment, but these few moments that eventually came together in my head. And I said, what makes me different is actually what makes me special. I shouldn't try and hide the fact that I have a different approach to things. Instead, I should use that to make things memorable. I should use that to help the team learn how to do other things. I shouldn't try and be like everybody else.
Great stuff. And just a thought that came to my mind, right? So men can actually mimic men, but if women start mimicking men, right, I think it doesn't really work like naturally. I don't know how to express this better, but this was just a thought. And I love it that you say it's actually the thing that differentiates you, makes you special, your strengths, right? And not some other people's strengths, right? And Roman, finally, you sent this comment in, the proof that Jesus is actually the real word, right? Welcome to the stream, and good you found it. After we broke the first one, like hopefully people join in. So Roman found it, so I'm really content that more people come. So shoot your comments. Melissa's here. Welcome, Melissa. And yeah, the thing. So what did you study actually? What was your background? So how did you come from? Where did you come from, and why pre-sales?
I studied maths and computer science, bachelor's and master's, not because I knew what I wanted to do with it, but because I've always been a sciencey nerd, and I've always loved maths. My school didn't actually do computer science. I went to an all-girls school, and computer science was not on the syllabus for us girls. Thankfully, it is now. I checked a couple of years ago. So when I first went to uni, I found the math stuff fascinating, although I learned that everything that we were taught at school was completely incorrect. But the computer science side of it, most people, obviously mainly guys, had already learned how to code at school, and I kind of fiddled about with HTML and CSS, but that's not real programming in like the Java and C sense. That really dates me now with my degree.
Yeah, a bit.
Where I came from was starting out at this horribly steep learning curve, not knowing how to code, surrounded by everybody else who just got it. And I felt like they could all see the matrix and I was completely blind. But over the years, and it was a 4-year degree, over the years, I got better and better. And then I got to the point where I just loved it. So after university, I took a job as a full-time engineer, working for a company called Janet at that time. It's the public sector in the UK. And this was mainly on various different kind of websites. And after a while, I got bored because great company, great people, but I wasn't really being challenged after a while. I'd kind of figured out how to do the job, and I was sat there behind my computer every single day. And I was like, this used to be great, but it's getting a bit samey. And then I was working on a project that meant I needed to present to different teams internally and get their buy-in on various things. And I was this person, right? Public speaking used to be my biggest fear, and it still makes me nervous, but I do it all the time. And I was that person. I went into these meetings and I made a PowerPoint deck, obviously. I had my slide notes, and I took an iPad and I'd read it like this, be like, okay, now on this slide, this is what we're seeing. But I kind of started to really enjoy it, and I found the nerves quite exhilarating. So then when I was looking at moving to London and I was looking at changing jobs, I was applying left, right, and centre to loads of things, mainly full-time engineering roles, because that was what I knew. And I took a chance on this one job, the pre-sales consultant. Like I said, no idea what that meant, but it sounded a bit more interesting from the job description. And then the MuleSoft interview process is, oh my goodness, felt like 18 interviews. It wasn't that bad, but there were a few. But every single interview gave me a little bit more of an inkling about what the job entailed. And it sounded like such a brilliant mix of using technical knowledge, being customer facing, talking to people, traveling, working with different kinds of teams, learning how different kinds of businesses work, that I was like, I've just got to do it. So I took it.
Amazing. So, but have you been approached by a recruiter, or have you found the role yourself?
I found the role myself, would you believe, on a job board.
Ah, all right. Nice. I got recruited. And it's a funny story because I was to decline, right? I said, I don't do it. And then a recruiter, she said to me, well, we were looking for senior people anyway, or more senior people anyway. And I was, what? No, stop. I will go for this. I will try it. So this is how I ended up at MuleSoft. It was pretty like close that will not be there, right? So
wow.
it's amazing that we actually met at the end. So, and I remember one situation where I told you will be CIO one day. I was in London and I told you, and now you're field CTO. How was your journey there? So did it go natural? Was it kind of easy because you are that memorable person? So has this an impact?
That's a really good question. It wasn't easy, but it was natural. And the reason why I say that is I was very fortunate in that joining MuleSoft was the perfect fit for me. And the stage of growth it was exactly right for like the stage of growth I was in my personal development and my career development. And I worked my ass off. And I ended up doing very well at MuleSoft, and I progressed upwards, started as like the very bottom as a junior, and I progressed upwards at MuleSoft to then work on the most like more and more strategic opportunities. I then joined the founder had put together, Ross Mason had put together a little office of the CTO, regional executives, to act as an extension of the CTO and Ross Mason's team to kind of conduct EBCs and be seen to like be the face-off to a C-level equivalent in a sales context. So I joined that group, which was very flattering to have been asked. Again, the only woman in there. I don't know if that's still the case. And then I found those conversations super interesting. And I learned that, and I don't know how much of this is just me getting older or me being exposed to things I wasn't exposed to before, but the more complex and the further reaching the impact of the MuleSoft technology, the more I could almost empathize with what was going to happen in the organization and try and imagine it. And the more interesting it was to think about, hey, we're not just going to talk about this particular feature, but we're going to talk about what that means for the happiness of your developer teams and therefore their productivity, and therefore what that means when they can get products out to market more quickly. What does that mean for your customers? What does that mean for your international expansion? All of these things. So after a while, then we had a brilliant IPO. We were acquired by Salesforce, and I decided I loved it so much I wanted to do it all over again. So I found Kong, and Kong is where I am now. Kong is the most widely used API gateway in the world. Check it out. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to know more.
This is not sponsored advertisement, right? Just to be clear.
A little plug I had to sneak in. But this, I kind of went there to start off where I left MuleSoft at and be the equivalent role there. And my journey at Kong has been across sales, across product, and across product marketing, which has been absolutely fascinating to get exposure to more parts of the organization than I had worked with before.
Amazing journey. And it's not CIO, but CTO. So my prediction was completely right, 100% on the point. You made it. And I was so sure that your trajectory is so big, because I don't know. You actually blew everybody away. It was my feeling of your like things that develop for you. Just amazing. I remember my first year, I thought I would be fired because I closed nothing. And I always came to the London office and you were all happy. Yeah, we're closing. And Jesus and you and Pablo, yeah, all good. Yeah, just the other side a bit.
Doesn't it? I'm sorry to interrupt, Patrick. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that I think everybody, whether or not you call it imposter syndrome or something else, but it just goes to show that like almost everybody has got these fears, but nobody admits it to each other. So like, there's me convinced I'm going to be fired because I don't know what pre-sales is and I don't know how to do it, and thinking that like you're this incredible experienced guy that invented DDD and C4E POCs and all of these incredible innovations in the pre-sales world. And meanwhile, you're thinking, oh God, I'm going to get fired, but look at Melissa.
Yeah, for me, this was another world, like the London office and then my lonely DACH region where the AEs just shake hands because they came in and went out. Like, yeah, no, all good. Let's go back to the topic, right? Actually, we talk a bit about social media here too, usually. But I have one question that I'll also ask. So let's skip social media for a bit, because I think what you have to offer is much more interesting. Yeah, maybe more philosophical question. Was there a failure you made that made you successful or more successful in the long run?
I mean, there are hundreds, Patrick.
Good.
I'm going to give...
Was there a big one? Was there just this thing that stood out?
I mean, there's a couple. I'm going to give you two. One of them is fairly tactical. In my first job, when I was interviewing for other roles, one of which was MuleSoft, I was going to present something and we were in a meeting room and I plugged my laptop into the external screen and up comes my personal email inbox, complete with job interviews, really readily obvious, and my boss read them. So That was one of I was so embarrassed, and that has taught me, before I share my screen in any context, I need to make sure that anything personal is not going to be displayed. And the second one, I'm sure we've all got a story like that. The second one is in a sales capacity, and this was a particularly big deal that we were working on at MuleSoft, and it went on for over a year, was the sales cycle, and we were all getting so excited by it. And there was this one guy that, like, we had friendly emails back and forth, and I said, yeah, like, Neil, he's a great champion, he's going to be supporting us. And we just kind of full steam rolled ahead until we lost. And it was such a big screw up that at the next company-wide offsite, we, as an account team, somebody needed to talk about a deal that we won, and somebody needed to talk about a deal that we lost and why. The AE, it was the same AE on both. The AE decided to talk about the one that we won, and I got stuck with talking about why we screwed up. But it's an important lesson, and this was that we didn't, and this is in the context of being an SE now, we didn't qualify throughout the sales cycle. As we got more and more confident with it, we got more and more complacent. And I mistook somebody being friendly and civil on emails for somebody believing in us and trusting us. So my big lesson that I apply now is just not constant pessimism, but always qualify in your sales opportunities.
Yeah.
Even if
so to get this right? You mean sales engineers qualify?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. You can't, no offense AEs, but you can't trust an AE to be the only person to be making decisions. You can't, I mean, it's the same with any role. You don't get an objective point of view when it's only from one person's perspective.
Yeah. No, it's just not reality everywhere. That SEs also qualify, and please do it, right? It's your responsibility also, right? For your own sake and success. Great. Okay. And then there's another one. What advice would you give to I would say, female sales engineer that starts out their journey? You can choose. You can also add on social media, because we will talk about this. You have a good social media presence. So there are some things I love about that. But what would you give? What would be the advice? Now looking back, because you're an older and wise person.
Sometimes. I think my answer would apply to social media, but also in a broader context. And that is continuing from something I said a minute ago. And this is, what makes you different is what makes you strong. And it is so important to spend the time to work out what is your personal identity, what is your personal brand. The terminology personal brand, I only learned in the last 18 months or so, I would say. So when I was starting out, didn't know what personal brand was, but I didn't know how to present, really. I didn't know how to convey personality. I didn't know how to make myself memorable and to form relationships and connections with prospects or customers or colleagues. And there were various people around me that were very good at things. For example, there's one colleague, Andrew Davey, who's probably the funniest person I've ever met.
Oh, yes. I saw him on stage. I think I saw him on stage in a pub in London. He's amazing.
I convinced him to do an open mic comedy night. He's that funny. So he would make every single interaction funny. Like, he'd still deliver the objective, but his strength is building that humor into it and getting people to be engaged because they're laughing. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's really effective. So I tried to be funny. And now humor is not a strength of mine other than cheese jokes. So I failed miserably at trying to be funny like Andrew. And there were various other people who had different techniques that I tried on as well. And none of them worked for me either. And it took me a few years of realization to learn that what I'm good at is connecting with people, getting people to emotionally relate to something that I'm talking about. And so that is what I now use to bring into my presentations or blogs, or if I'm writing things on LinkedIn, I make sure that like that is my strength, that is part of my persona. So that's how I project myself. So my advice would be find out, and it's quite a philosophical question, I suppose, but find out who you are, because that is special, and you are going to be the very best at being yourself with your natural strengths rather than trying to be like someone else.
I love it. I love it. William. William just shoot us a comment. William, I'm glad you found it. I've seen your message on LinkedIn. We had some trouble with the stream and need to restart, so I'm glad you're here. So what William says, the solution consultants usually qualify better because they are once removed from the quota pressure. Quota tends to put blinders on the sales rep when it comes to qualification. We have to say we had quota, right, to carry. So what do you think about William's perception?
I have definitely met sales reps like that.
Yeah.
Not every sales rep is like that. And I do think SEs, well, I think it very much does depend on the quota model. I think some SEs have an individual one, some SEs have a team, a shared one. Others, I think it's less commission driven than AEs. But certainly, and I can only speak from my perspective, I'm not financially motivated in the same way as an AE. Otherwise, I would probably try and be an AE. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but I think William's absolutely right. That means that I would approach a situation with a different perspective, because I'm not so motivated by the financial aspects.
What then motivates you to close a deal? I mean, we're still in sales, right? There, of course, there is the customer we want to make happy. We want to solve problems. Got it. I think this is very equal throughout SEs, right? But we are there to keep the machine running, right? So we need to close deals. So what does motivate you? Is it a thrill at the end or something like this?
For me, it's achievements. I'm massively motivated by achieving things, and I'm a terrible perfectionist, and therefore I like to do my very best job. So when we win, I feel like I've done a good job.
Okay, great. Let me see. There was one more comment. William said, yes, but presets usually carry a group quota versus individual quota. We had both. Yeah, but those are typical models, right? And every company plays them out as it best fits their culture, I would say, or the kind of competition they want to see. I remember Musav, we had really this lone wolves even in the pre-sales arena, right? So people who rarely shared, but were very successful and just ran with one AE, right? And they crushed every year. It was like amazing. Yeah? And I believe they hunted quota most of the time, right? I don't know. It's definitely fun, yeah. But what's your point?
And there's nothing wrong with doing that either, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, William, for your questions. I have another question for you, though. What is it? I mean, we go on discovery calls, on qualification calls, right? Maybe we had just a bad night because so when I started pre-sales, my daughter was 3 months, so sometimes I didn't sleep. So it was rarely, but it happened, right? What am I doing on this call then? Am I acting? Am I maybe try to entertain the customer? What's your perspective? Should we be actors, entertainers, or clowns? What is it we are that we should be?
I think we should be entertaining.
Okay.
I don't know that necessarily means entertainers. And what I mean by that is your objective from any kind of interaction with a prospect is to close the deal, right? And to close the deal, you need to be memorable. Most people make decisions based on memories that have.
I need to chime in. I love Edgar's comment. Like, always remember the hiring principle at Mule emphasized on hiring good humans. Amazing. Exactly. Everybody, only good humans. That's why it worked so well at MuleSoft. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, worth interrupting. Great comment from Edgar. When you're trying to win a deal, you need to be memorable. And to be memorable, that's because when somebody's making a decision, they usually base it on memories that are in their brains, whether it's a decision that they're making about what to eat for breakfast or which iPhones to buy. They're going to rely on previous decisions they've made or previous memories that are in their brains. So you need to make sure that you leave a good memory in someone's brain. And in order to be memorable, you need to not be boring. So that's why I say that you need to be entertaining. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be funny or you have to be dramatic. Again, find your style. But
what do I do if I'm just, sorry, but I need to know. What do I do if I think I'm just a mediocre person, right? My style is not special. My haircut is very normal. Like, I wear glasses and I'm very shy. So what do I do? How can I be memorable?
There is absolutely nothing wrong with being, I think you're a perfect human, Patrick. There is nothing wrong with not having anything that makes you visually stand out. But in order to make something stick, there's a really good book recommendation here, actually, and it's called Made to Stick by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. And they have this framework, and it's called Success, but with one S at the end. And I can't remember all of the words, but it's about different techniques you can use to make something stick in people's minds. You need to make something concrete. For example, if you said, this popcorn contains 750 calories, you might be like, oh, that might be quite a lot. But then if you say this popcorn equals 3 Big Macs and 2 McFlurry ice creams, you're like, wow, that's quite a lot of calories in that popcorn. If you make something concrete in that way, then it's easier for people to understand and remember. If you make something funny, if you catch people by surprise, then they'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect that. That stays in people's minds. So there's all these tricks that you can use when you're structuring a presentation or when you're presenting yourself that are designed to just help people stay more engaged and remember you. I think on the actor side, I'm very intrigued actually to everybody listening what you think of this. I have a unproven hypothesis.
Okay, let us know.
This is based on the experience of 2 people, namely me and my dad. That is that it helps in any kind of, if you're in any role that requires presenting, it helps to have had acting experience in a completely extracurricular context. For example, I was total nerd at school and I did it as an extracurricular activity for a few years and I really enjoyed it. And I think that's helped me to know how to project my voice. It's helped me to know how to put on a persona and make sure that if I'm on a call, this is the Melissa that you get, rather than I'm having a really bad day and I'm knackered and that comes out. My dad works in IT. He presents a lot. He did an improv comedy course. And he said the skills that he learned there are very applicable in situations where he's in a room of people, he's needing to manage things on the fly, and he's needing to be a presence that is engaging in front of an audience. I don't know what you think.
I did improv for a while. My neighbor actually, he got here 2 years ago or so, and he is an actor, and he said, "There's improv, come with me." And I joined a couple of times. I feel with you, so I think that works like charm. And you should do public speaking courses. Every SE has to do it. That's my big belief. We should entertain like hell because we should bring the unexpected to the client, right? Otherwise, we are not memorable, and we need to, like, in every presentation, especially in the big ones like proposal or RFP presentation, whatever, right? You need to find something that just is different to everybody else. You have to, no matter how shy you are or whatever is on your mind right now. So that was my preaching. Sorry.
Interesting. Yes. I didn't know you did an improv comedy course, Patrick.
Yeah, that's actually in the next town away or city away. They did this every week before Corona. So I joined every week when I could. That's amazing. It's amazing. And it helped my novel writing skills because I can watch behavior and I learn like dialogue and stuff. What works, what not, conflict. Yeah. Oh, William. That's interesting. William grew up with the hobby of magic. So I always learned how to use Petter.
It's like lots of chit chat with the audience, keeping them going.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, I think this helps. And I believe a lot of sales engineers are introvert and have a creative mind. So they love the solitude, working in their own heads, love this creativity. If it's, I don't know what kind of art it is, but you play like violin. No, it wasn't violin, it was the ukulele, right? You play ukulele, right? I love writing. Other people play guitar and stuff like that. So I think it's very common, and use this creativity, right? This, even though you are shy or not, right? So that's my opinion about this. Yeah, great one. Yeah, and did you do public speaking courses or something like that, or do you have a plan how to come up with something concrete, surprising? How do you do that? Do you need to crunch presentations for a while, or does it just come up like your idea?
I've not actually done a public speaking course officially, but I've done a lot of like self-teaching on the subject. I said a little while ago, public speaking was always my biggest fear, and to get over this in the first place, I didn't tell anybody this when I interviewed at MuleSoft. I feel like I can admit it now though. To get over this, again, another reason why I was convinced that I was going to get fired. My confidence would always come from preparation. So I would make sure that I know my subject inside out. I've prepared my own slides. I much prefer that to presenting other people's slides, because then I know the exact reason behind everything on the slide. And I hate too many things on the slide as well. And I would just spend sometimes hours like doing run-throughs after run-throughs until I could basically do something word for word. And then I would feel confident doing a presentation. I'm not quite as bad these days, but I never do a presentation without having done a dry run of it. Otherwise, like, you just don't know how it's gonna come out of your mouth, because something in your head is never the same as something coming out of your mouth.
Exactly. I love this. So preparation is key, and I think that's also key thing introverts do, just to get the feeling, the security, right? The self-confidence. And please prepare all the time. There's one thing that happened to me at the MuleSoft event in London. I was on the main stage. That was amazing for me. I could speak there. And then I gave my slides to the producer, right? And he said, "It's all right, everything is there. Can you see everything?" I said, "No, I don't see my speaker notes because they aren't on the screen, the little one, right? And just before the stage." You will make it. And I thought, gosh, I didn't learn this thing. That was actually one thing I learned. Always prepare for the worst, right? Do the whole thing without even a slide at all. You should be that prepared. Yeah. And after that, you become really good. Like, it's a natural thing, right?
Yeah. Someone gave me a piece of advice recently, because I still very much have imposter syndrome, nerves, and pardon?
Edgar just gave us a dry runs.
Oh yeah, always.
Right, there's more.
Oh, Edgar, snap. And I don't know whether I've done hundreds or thousands of presentations by now, having been in the industry for quite a long time. But like, I still get nerves, and I'm still figuring out like what's the best advice for me in any kind of like presentation environment. And someone said to me recently, and this is something that I'm finding helpful at the moment, your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to help the audience understand what it is that you're trying to say.
Oh,
it doesn't matter, like, you need to do your presentation so that you know that your message is going to be understandable by people, not so that you recite everything word for word and don't say in the middle. Like, that is okay.
Yeah, no, that's a very cool mind trick. Like running with, I'm here that you get it, right? It's not about that I am the best on stage, right? Again, your ego in place, like the same thing that could happen to us in presentations or demos. And Edgar, I love it, right? Yeah, go through it as a lot of times as you can. I completely understand this. That's a main driver for success. Yeah, amazing. So let me see, what else do I have for you? Yes, there's one more. Ooh. So 3 tips, please, for our audience. I want more success, Melissa. Tell me how this works. How can I become Field CTO at Kong?
Talk to me.
Talk to me. There might be, no.
We are hiring jobs in every region, in every role. But seriously though.
This is not sponsored.
I'm going to caveat what I'm going to say with the fact that I don't use social media other than LinkedIn, and I don't know that I would say I'm successful with social media on LinkedIn. But my approach is, I think there's 2 types of people on LinkedIn. There's the posts that I see that are so generic and so boring that I skip straight past them. And to be honest, I forget who it is that even wrote it when it goes off my screen. And then there's the kind of people that make interesting posts. I'm like, oh, actually, I want to click read more and see what the rest of this says. Oh, I remember this person actually posted something interesting last week. I'm going to start to pay a bit more attention to what they're saying. And I think so. Therefore, piece of advice number 1 is you've got to have a personality. Don't just do generic copy paste of something, because, and I know companies say that you should do this, but from my perspective, if I see, and I've got kind of a network that's got quite a few people from one company, quite a few people from another company, and I'm like, oh, someone in the marketing team has said to this company, write these posts, and you just see, right, like these 7 people have all just written the same thing. I'm not going to read any of them. Whereas as soon as you personalize a message a little bit, it becomes interesting, because it becomes something that is associated with you and what you have to say, rather than just typing something without caring. So that links to tip number 2, and that is to not just write stuff for the sake of it. Quality does not equal quantity. I think you've got to be respected for the things that you write as well. Like, would you stand up and say that in a meeting to someone? Would you stand up and say that in a presentation? If not, then why would you write about it on the internet? Just because you
That's
can?
A good qualifier. Very good. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think my third tip is to reframe what success might mean. Is success how many views or how many likes you get? It really depends. I think success, if you're trying to raise awareness of something or evangelize or teach people something, success could be one person reading an article and remembering that I'm trying to educate people on what API ops is at the moment. So I post about API ops quite a lot. It's automating the API lifecycle with declarative configuration. But for me, if one person reads a post that I write and remembers the term API ops, then actually that has been successful, even if it's not like a viral post.
Mm-hmm. Have you had the situation that you joined a meeting where people didn't know you before, but they gave you the impression they know you because they have seen your videos online or your posts?
I've definitely had it lots of times when people have seen me present at events. Things are getting better now, but for quite a long time, I was the only woman presenting at various events. So I would be noticeable enough. I've always had crazy colored hair, so that would make me even more noticeable. So a few years later, if someone saw me at an event and they'd be like, "Oh, you've got crazy colored hair, you must be Melissa," people would come over to me and be like, "Hi, Melissa, nice to see you." And I'm like, "Oh, I have no idea who you are." So I get that quite a lot. On LinkedIn, I'm not going to forget this. I was talking to a colleague a couple of weeks ago, and he said he was on a call with someone in Brazil who had been reading my posts about API ops and started to talk to him about it. And I was like, I'm not even connected to this person on LinkedIn. I don't know who this person is, but I feel so enthused by the fact that this complete stranger has been reading my posts.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think that's the great power of doing this. So I mean, you have lots of information out there. You have a very personal post, and there's a very personal post about you on wearetechwoman.com, right? It's very personal. So then there is a lot of stuff. So people go and read, please, or watch your videos. You have those amazing interviews and high quality out there on LinkedIn, right? It depends. It depends with your role. But still, I think you leave a very big impression, and it's actually you build a brand. You are a brand, I think, right? And that helps Kong actually to be recognized. So there's a kind of halo effect maybe between both of you, right? Just to add my opinion on that. And actually, Robert is hi, Robert. Good to see you. He also thinks it's a great comparison. Like, so would I say the same thing in a meeting to a bunch of strangers, right? With this post I have in front of me. So think twice. I love this. It's very good. Good. Did we have 3 tips? Okay, let's put it that way. You said 3 tips about social media, but I wanted to become a CTO at Kong. What's an advice like people could follow to become as successful as you are?
Well, that's very flattering. I can only speak for what has worked for me, and that is to understand who I am and not be afraid of that. Like, I am a bit weird. I used to try and hide that, whereas now I'm like, actually, it doesn't make me have any less worth than anybody else. The fact that I'm female in almost always a room full of men, that is something that I can actually use to help make my message more memorable. So over the years, I've kind of worked out what are my personal strengths? What do I have to offer over and above, the quantitative requirements you'd see in a job spec, like knows these programming languages, has this degree, has this experience. There's a whole load of other stuff that is what makes you that you can't really put in a job description, that is like such value that you can bring to any organization. And I've been incredibly fortunate. Kong is a really great place for me because I am empowered to define quite a lot of what the role means. And considering I've got the pre-sales experience, I've been in marketing, I've been in product, I've been in sales, that means that I can have a look at things from a slightly broader perspective and say, actually, this is something that we should be spending time on, like API ops, for example. I keep talking about it, look it up. But all of my decisions, and I used to feel quite bad about the fact that I never had a career plan. And especially when you're in a startup or a scale up, everybody's pretty ambitious and everybody's got a fairly well-defined plan of how they're going to get to this scarily high position that they want to get to. And I've never had that. And instead, I've been very opportunistic with the career decisions that I've made. And it's a case of, what is it that motivates me? What is it that I'm good at and that I enjoy? What is it that, what amount of challenge and being pushed out of my comfort zone do I want? And what opportunities are there that is going to offer me those things? And then is that going to be something that I can see a 2+ year future in, rather than something that will keep me happy for 6 months? And that's just how I've been navigating my career.
I love it. There comes a question to my mind. It was actually a woman asking me, and I would pass on the question to you. She asked me, Patrick, I have no prior experience in pre-sales. Should I go and join a startup?
Your screen froze. Was the question, should I join a startup or should I join a startup in pre-sales?
Yeah, sure. So she asked me, like, I have no prior experience in pre-sales, but I would love to join a startup. Should I join a startup as a woman in a pre-sales position?
Well, speaking from my experience, absolutely yes. Being a female being an SC, firstly, regardless of gender, made my career in tech, made my career in tech startups. Being a female SC also made my career, because it gave me so many lessons in terms of who I am, how I can be effective in doing that job, and how to be a strong woman in tech. Now, I was thinking about this quite recently. And when you think about the role of a pre-sales person, you need really, I'm going to ignore, doesn't matter whether you've been in a startup, whether you know what pre-sales is. To be a good pre-sales person, to be a great pre-sales person, you need to have good listening skills, right? You do discovery calls, you ask questions, and you listen. And you don't just listen to what someone says, but you try and understand, why are they saying that? Why are they asking me that question? That requires empathy. Also, when you are doing a demo, when you are doing a presentation, you need to tailor your message to the audience. That requires knowing who the audience is. That requires empathy. In order to communicate your message clearly, you need good communication skills. These are, and that's whether you're on stage, whether it's a one-to-one meeting in a small room. These are all traits that come very naturally to a lot of women. So there is huge opportunity for women, regardless of experience, to be absolute knockout SCs. And I know others in my career that have done. There's a shout out that I want to give to Yo Lee, who joined MuleSoft as a junior a couple of years after I did. She's now a manager within 3 years. She's smashed sales quota every single year and is doing incredibly well. And that means there's at least 2 of us within one company that have proven this. So I would give a double thumbs up to this lady. And also, Patrick, if you want to put us in touch, I'm happy to speak to her further.
Oh, yeah, perfect. I will see if I find her in my LinkedIn feed. There was some comment. I just remembered. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay, please, girls, go for it. Right. Yeah. I completely support this. It's amazing. Okay, I want to know some personal things about you. Our hour is going to an end, and I hate it. I would love to continue this. Maybe in the last 5 minutes, what are 2 personal hacks or tips about anything? Maybe it's in your life right now. Would you share with us? So make us happier, make us wealthier, make us, I don't know, slimmer.
There is nothing wrong with being any size. I might be cheeky and give you 3. The first
Okay.
is a slightly work-related one, but it's something that I found helpful. It's in a book that I've been reading recently, and that is, it's mainly aimed at women, but it's also aimed at people who just have a little less confidence in a room. When you are starting a sentence, if you start off the first word with a hard consonant rather than a soft one or a vowel, then it kind of almost gives you more confidence and it makes you sound more confident with the rest of your sentence.
Be concrete. Give me an example.
Great question. For example, you were saying something and I'd say, great question, Patrick. Yeah? Hard consonant. Great question. That I can feel a lot of strength. Whereas I could say, everything you just asked me is a great question. It's a lot weaker the way that comes across. So strong consonants, firstly. Secondly, this one...
That actually works in writing too, I think.
Does it? Nice to know.
Yeah, I think it works.
Second.
Yeah, okay, go on. Second.
I
love it.
So
More.
Part of the UK government has been doing random COVID tests to households over the last 18 months, just to have like a pulse on how the country's doing. So, and they selected my household at the beginning. So I've been doing COVID tests since the beginning. And in the last 6 months, doing the kind of finger prick blood tests to test for antibodies.
Yeah.
And the guy that came around most recently gave me the best tip. I don't know if anybody's ever done a finger prick test. Usually what happens, you've got these little lancets about this big, and they don't hurt at all. Nonetheless, you're terrified as you have to push a tiny blade into your skin and then drops of blood come out. Yeah. And you try it in one finger and you squeeze it and hardly anything comes out. So you have to stab yourself in another and you squeeze it and hardly anything comes out. Meanwhile, you've got blood dripping down your hand and it all gets messy. If you need to do that kind of blood test, soak your hand in warm water for a couple of minutes and then prick your finger and it just comes straight out. It is so much easier.
Okay.
It's disgusting. But he blew my mind.
So I will watch my door. Okay. No, we don't have this in Germany. We do different tests. It's like the stick in the nose, like up until over there.
Yeah.
Okay, you promised us 3.
Yes, the third one. How often, Patrick, do you crack an egg into a pan or a bowl and a little bit of eggshell, a tiny little bit of eggshell falls in?
Not so often because I only eat plants, but I remember the times when I did. Yeah, it happened to me very often.
Yeah, I should know my audience. Well, if you get a bit of the eggshell, the half of the eggshell that you broke in two, you can just use it to scoop out the little bit of eggshell that's fallen into your egg. It works so much better than trying to use your fingers or trying to use a fork or a spoon or anything.
Nice. Those are life-saving tricks, I would say. Amazing. There's one last question. I didn't prepare you on this, but it's nothing bad or so. But at the end of every episode, I actually ask my guest for a nomination for next episode, right? And I would love you to nominate a woman in pre-sales, a sales engineer. If you know some, you don't need to do now, but also afterwards. But if you know somebody, like very spontaneously,
yeah.
Who would this be?
I mentioned her already. I'd like to nominate Yoli, pre-sales manager at Microsoft.
Amazing.
If she'll take it.
Yeah, me too. You got nominated too, so you took it also. I'm very looking forward to this. That's amazing. So any last words? We are really at the end. I'm so sorry about this.
Oh, wow.
Anything that you want to say to the world?
I thank you for listening. Thank you for the comments. And my personal mantra is what makes you different makes you special. So cherish the facts. Any little thing that makes you weird, it's awesome.
Thank you. You're amazing. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Follow the Little Phoenix and subscribe down here to our channel. So maybe Melissa comes back one day and you don't want to miss this. Yeah, definitely not. So it was a pleasure, all of you. See you soon. And we are out now.